to pull up a chair. We've got another great story for you today in the rLounge. Ah, the world's smallest violin. It's a prestigious club. Today in the rLounge, there's always room for one more dramatic solo performance. Up first, OP didn't realize their wedding would double as a reunion tour. Am I the a-hole for canceling my wedding after finding out my fiancé's ex is invited by his family? I, 27 female, and my fiancé, Alex, 30 male, have been engaged for a year and we're planning our wedding for the end of the summer. Everything was going smoothly until a couple of weeks ago when Alex's family dropped a bombshell. Alex's family is very close-knit and has always been involved in our wedding planning. Recently, I have found out that they have invited Alex's ex, Sarah, 29 female, to the wedding. Alex and Sarah were dating for about 5 years and broke up about 2 years ago. They're still on good terms, but I was never comfortable with the idea of her being at our wedding. When I brought this up to Alex, he said that it's a family tradition to invite former partners if they're still friends, and that it would be rude to exclude her. He insisted that it's no big deal and that Sarah is just a part of their extended social circle. I tried to explain that having Sarah at our wedding made me feel uncomfortable and undermined the significance of this event for me. Alex's response was that I was being unreasonable and selfish for not considering his family's feelings. He argued that it would cause unnecessary drama if we uninvited Sarah now, and that we should just focus on enjoying the day. I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just about inviting an ex, but also about my place in Alex's life and whether I was truly our priority. After a lot of back and forth, I decided that I couldn't go through with the wedding under these circumstances. I canceled the venue and all the plans we had made, explaining to Alex and his family that I couldn't commit to marrying someone who wasn't willing to respect my feelings about such a significant issue. Now, Alex and his family are furious with me. They believe I am overreacting and that I should have been more accommodating. Some of my friends and family think I did the right thing, while others feel I might have acted too impulsively. So, am I the a-hole for canceling my wedding after finding out that my fiancé's ex was invited by his family? Edit. Wow, guys, I never expected this post to blow up the way it did. I'm trying to respond to as many comments as I can, but thank you all for the unwavering love and support. Let's check in with some of those comments and see what they have to say. First up, why his family is sending invites, and how would they have felt if you had invited one of your exes as a family tradition? Someone else chimes in, I assumed this was fake because of the random invite. That's not how weddings work. That and OP says fiancé and ex broke up 2 years ago, but they've been engaged for a whole year. Feels like the creative writer is either lazy or young. One more person says, not the a-hole. If this was such a prized tradition, why didn't they actually tell OP from the start? Nah, that family was definitely trying to make something happen. And one more opinion. Not the a-hole. This wasn't just about an ex being invited. It was about how your feelings and boundaries were respected. A wedding is a union of two people, not an obligation to adhere to family traditions that make the bride uncomfortable. If this issue couldn't be resolved amicably, it's better to rethink the relationship altogether. Oh, all right, one more opinion. All the talk about her being inconsiderate of other people's feelings is incredibly rich. We haven't considered your feelings at all. But by asking us to consider your feelings, you aren't being very considerate of our feelings. Jesus, these people sound like a nightmare. Honestly, just the very fact that his family is inviting people makes me want to gag. This is your wedding. You're absolutely not the a-hole here, OP. If Alex's family thinks inviting an ex is just a charming little tradition, they clearly missed the memo that weddings are supposed to be about your special day, not a reunion of Alex's past relationships. And let's be real, if they were this keen on including everyone from Alex's past, imagine the chaos if you'd suggested inviting some of your exes. I bet they'd find that a bit too family-oriented for their taste. So kudos to you for realizing that if this is what respect looks like in their eyes, it's better to call off the wedding than to spend the rest of your life as a permanent guest star in Alex's list of relationships. What do you make of this so-called family tradition? Up next, what's a little friendly family competition? Would I be the a-hole if I announced my pregnancy right after my older sister using her exact announcement message? Hi Reddit, I'm a 26-year-old woman. My older sister, Tiffany, 31 female, has an issue with needing attention and one-upping me and my other sister, Chloe, 28 female. Ever since we were kids, if we had something big happen or won any type of award, Tiffany would inject herself and try to pull attention away. It was never really confronted, and our parents would tell Chloe and I that, you know how she is, self-conscious and paranoid about not having attention, just let it go. As an example, she told Chloe that she couldn't introduce her new boyfriend now husband, to our family or bring him to events when they started dating because they got together the same month that she, Tiffany, got engaged, and it would pull attention away from her because everyone would want to get to know the new guy instead of focusing on the wedding. She tried to ban him from the wedding, which got overruled. Additionally, she tried to schedule her wedding the same day as my college graduation, knowing it was my graduation, but trying to pick it anyway because it was the perfect day, and I already got the experience of my high school graduation, so it doesn't matter if I missed this one. She got overruled on this one too. Well, fast forward to 3 weeks ago. Chloe got a new dog that she is very excited about and sent a photo to our family group chat saying, "We are excited to announce a new member of our family. Meet Bess." Everyone was messaging back, commenting on how cute the dog is, how excited they are that Chloe got a dog, etc. Well, cue Tiffany. Not an hour after Chloe's message, she sent this. "Well, congrats on the new dog. Speaking of new additions, baby T is due this November." I was pissed. This exactly the same type of crap she always pulls, and I knew how excited Chloe was about this dog, and I felt it was a passive-aggressive dick move. I saw Chloe later, and she was putting on a brave face, but it was clear that she knew Tiffany had done this to one-up her yet again. Here's where I would be the a-hole. I know for a fact that Tiffany's worst nightmare is for one of us to be pregnant at the same time as her. She has told a family member I talk to regularly that if I or Chloe was pregnant at the same time as her, it would ruin her pregnancy because we would be taking attention from her. Well, I found out yesterday I am pregnant with my first, and here is where I need judgment. Would I be the a-hole if I announced my pregnancy in the family group chat using Tiffany's exact message? Example, "Well, congrats on the new baby. Speaking of new additions, baby M is due this January." Petty? Very. But would I be the a-hole? Quick edit that came up in a comment. My husband and I are over the moon about this step towards starting our family. I'm a couple months along, but didn't have symptoms, nausea, so we only just found out. Given I'm a couple months in, we are ready to tell the family. Any way that we tell people is going to piss off Tiffany. It's more of a question of doing this or phrasing it more delicately to microscopically reduce her anger. Also, I'm genuinely happy for her on her pregnancy. I'm just frustrated that she was petty yet again. I hoped she would be over that by now, but it seems like it's gotten worse. I don't think you'd be the a-hole here for announcing your pregnancy, OP. If any announcement is going to ruffle her feathers, it might as well be with a touch of well-deserved retribution. So, in the grand tradition of family feuds and sibling rivalry, I say go for it. Update. Wow, this blew up. I'm going to add a little more info after reading some comments. My husband and I live across the country, and the rest of the siblings live at least a couple hours from each other. The last family get-together was Christmas, so it's been a while. Due to distance, the majority of our big announcements happen over the group chat, although usually pregnancies come with photos and some kind of fanfare. Info. I shouldn't have used the word overruled on the wedding. With the boyfriend, Tiffany's fiance said they should get to know him at a few events and get a sense for his vibe, and then make the call on the invite. Boyfriend is a super chill, kind guy, so Tiffany said he could come and moved on to a different problem. With my graduation, my parents said they would be attending, and fiance stepped in saying there was another date that month that he liked better, would work better. I did call my parents and let them know, and they are excited, though told me that I should be delicate on how I phrase it, not to upset Tiffany. I said this isn't her first child, and she should be honestly happy for me. If I had gotten pregnant just to spite her, I would get it, but my husband and I have been trying for a while, and we are super excited. They told me I should gush over her and say how happy and excited I am for her, and then add how excited I am to have kids so close together. I'm not honestly sure how happy about that I am, though. I want my child to have family and cousins, but I'm not sure how much I want him or her to be around Tiffany since she's a major gossip and negative busybody. I would much rather have him or her be around Chloe's kids. I also called Chloe, asked her how she's been, and generally caught up, then told her. She is thrilled for us and super excited to be an auntie again. We talked a little about the back and forth in the group chat, and she laughed and said, "It was inevitable. If it wasn't a baby, it would have been a new thing about one of her other kids or a new recipe or something." She said she would leave it up to me how I announce it. She also sent me more photos of Bess, and honestly, cutest freaking dog I've ever seen. Chloe has had a really tough year, and Bess is her husband's gift to her for weathering the storm and being amazing. Everyone in the family knows this, so it was very apparent Tiffany was trying to quash all of that. We've put up with Tiffany's shenanigans for years and never pushed back because we wanted to be sensitive to her insecurities. But in the last couple of years, she was really up to the ante. Chloe's kids have allergies, so Tiffany went and called several members of the family saying that she just doing it for attention, and that the kids aren't actually allergic. They definitely are. She only calls me to gossip about the other people, and when I've shut it down or said, "You seem really concerned and I'm not there to see for myself, so maybe you need to talk to the person directly if it really is this big of an issue," she comes up with excuses and then will ghost me for weeks to months. I'm honestly worried that she will try to name steal or gossip or lie about my husband and I to family members no matter what I do. I should be able to find out gender through blood tests in a few weeks. Tiffany has not announced gender yet, and I'm leaning towards announcing to everyone else then. Also, to everyone who commented along the lines of, as Palpatine or Sidious said, "Do it. Thanks for the laughs." You're right to be cautious about Tiffany's potential shenanigans. Her pattern of gossip, negativity, and trying to overshadow everyone else's happiness is well established. It sounds like your idea of sharing your news in a way that serves her a dose of her own medicine while still keeping things joyful and positive is spot on. Maybe a simple, upbeat announcement that lets your excitement shine through, without directly engaging in Tiffany's petty games, is the way to go. After all, your joy should be the focus, not Tiffany's need for drama. What would you do in this situation? Next up, turns out the only thing more controversial than the last name is the drama that it can stir up with the family. Am I the a-hole for calling mother-in-law by her last name instead of grandma? My relationship to my mother-in-law, Mrs. Smith, is crap. She's cold to me because I kept my last name, Miller. She says, "I'll treat her like family when she wants to be a part of it." She calls me Jake's friend. My husband, Jake, loves me all the same. He doesn't bother standing up to her because it's a way for her to start a fight. We rarely talk to her. She makes no effort. Neither do we. Jake and I had discussed whose last name our kid would have prior to birth. He initiated the conversation. I'd left the decision up to him. After the birth, the families visited the hospital. Jake asked what our son's last name was going to be. I told him it was still his choice. He smiled and said, "Little baby Miller. I like it." He filled out the paperwork. Mother-in-law looked livid. She started asking questions, but my dad started crying. Both of my brothers have died. Dad has never mentioned it, but I know passing the last name down makes him happy. Neither Jake or I anticipated this, nor did it for this reason, but it was sweet all the same. After she left, mother-in-law let people know what I had done, and how now she wouldn't feel like a grandmother. A month later, a sister-in-law announced her pregnancy. Mother-in-law said, "Finally, I'll feel like a grandmother." Again, my husband didn't say anything, and neither did I. Our son started talking. During a video call where my mother-in-law did nothing but gush about sister-in-law's daughter, who is adorable, Jake was trying to get the baby to talk. Son lost interest. I took son and Jake, let mother-in-law ramble some more before ending the call. Mother-in-law said she wanted to say bye to son. Jake turned to the phone. Mother-in-law said, "Say bye to grandma. Make son say it. I'm grandma now." I snapped inside, so I said, "Say bye, Mrs. Smith." My mother-in-law's face dropped. Jake turned the camera away and said bye quickly. He laughed, said I was awesome, but we better put our phones on silent. The only call or text I responded to was the other sister-in-law who said I didn't need to go out of my way to be nasty. That mother-in-law went around saying how excited she was about son, lie, that her initial comments were understandable because I talked Jake out of tradition. I did not, and that I'd hurt mother-in-law. Mother-in-law needed time to adjust. I said, "Thank you for your input." Mother-in-law texted eventually saying I'd really upset her. I said, "Here I was, trying to respect the importance you feel to last names. You've said multiple times, I'm not family because of my last name. You made it more than clear that's the reason my child doesn't make you feel like a grandma. Now you'll be known as Mrs. Smith." She said sorry, she didn't mean it that way. But that my dad's reaction was an example of how important last names are. I now had to forgive her because family. It made me angrier that she brought my dad into this, and I can't tell him if I'm being the a-hole or not. Edit. Thank you again for everyone who gave me awards. It was very kind of you, and I do appreciate it. Jake is home, and I had him read this post. Some of you really cracked him up. Some made good points, which we have discussed. Apparently, he also got a text from his sister and asked how much money she got from mother-in-law for telling me off. He also made sure to tell sister-in-law, who had the baby, that we hold nothing against her. Should mother-in-law try to spin it that way? She knows mother-in-law better, thankfully. Jake would also like to tell those who are telling me I should take his name that he disagrees and he's not about the sexism you're spewing, though he does now want to send mother-in-law a Christmas card from the Millers. Edit 2. You guys are being great. I woke up to many more responses than I anticipated. Thank you. Just to clarify, my son will not be calling mother-in-law Mrs. Smith. They barely have a relationship and he's still a baby and mother-in-law makes no effort. After some discussion, Jake is going to take time to figure out what he wants from mother-in-law and if he thinks that's possible. Let's check in with the community. First up, can I just say your marriage sounds great? The way you wanted the baby's last name to be his choice and he chose yours? There's so much love and respect here. Also, I like how he stands by your side in his mother's nonsense. You both are awesome, not the a-hole. The OP replies, I just assumed our son would have his. He brought it up. He said it was fair since I was doing all the work. He said if he pushed a human out of him, he'd want to put his name on it, which makes me laugh. I still let it be his choice because regardless of his name, I'm going to love this kid. If we have a second, I may insist they get his last name. Seems fair. I'm a very lucky woman, but it should be noted he wears his gross shoes through the house. So not perfect. But he says I sleep like an MMA fighter, so I suppose we're even. The OP responds to a comment that answers many points. I don't see a reason why you're angry when she told you about your father's reaction. Seems a pretty valid point. The importance of the last name has for your father and her. This observation doesn't excuse her actions, but still is a good point. I mean, for what you have said, it seems like your dad would have done any nasty comments, but him crying shows how important it is for some people. Mother-in-law divorced the man whose last name she took. It wasn't even her original name, and she has another son who's going to have kids. My husband wasn't her only option, and my father lost 2 sons. My dad's reaction comes from a very different emotional place, and frankly, he knew he wasn't entitled to it. He simply appreciates it. Even father-in-law didn't care, and again, this decision was made by my husband with my full support. Why isn't she mad at him? I'm not sure if this is how you would say it. Taste of her own medicine? It was a good move to show her how unrespectful she was doing the same, and calling her by her last name was a good move indeed. But now that she is taking accountability, I think that's the word, it would be a jerk move to keep calling her in that way. Maybe you can use this to get out boundaries to her actions, so it would be smart to get an agreement instead of keeping the last name war. I'm not going to keep calling her that. I'm currently discussing with my husband what we should do. The verdict was not the a-hole. It's sad how she's managed to turn your son's name into a battleground, but let's be real. If she's only excited about a grandchild when it comes to the right last name, maybe it's time she reevaluates her priorities. It's a shame she's more focused on her self-perceived status than on actually forming a meaningful bond with her grandchild. If she wants to be a part of your son's life, she might need to step up her game beyond just the name. After all, a grandparent's role isn't defined by a surname. It's earned by love, effort, and being present. Update, October 23rd, 2020. Jake and I appreciated all the support, though Jake wants the DMers to know that he's okay with me taking his balls because he loses everything anyway. This brought him a good chuckle before the serious talk. We both also want to be very clear that taking his name was never on the table, nor does he care. I also do want to say I know how great Jake is, though since the post he's been demanding I thank the world's best husband anytime he does something for me. His humor is my favorite part of him. Because it's his mom, I let him decide how to handle it. We both did agree that our son would obviously know mother-in-law as his grandma, but he wouldn't have a relationship with her unless she addressed the blatant favoritism. That conversation did not go well. She denied having favorites, lied about pretty much everything, then told me the compromise she was willing to make was that if she had to accept me for who I am, being that I kept that name, I'd have to accept her for who she is. I didn't respond before Jake ripped into her about how she didn't get to make demands, that she was critical of me, assumed things that he already told her wasn't true, that this conversation was happening because we didn't accept who she was. He said if he ever heard her make another comment about the Miller last name, he'd take it. She started crying about losing her family, and he hung up. One sister-in-law, who is mother-in-law's favorite child, sent me a nasty message including the line, "I wonder if your dead brother would be happy you used him to break mother-in-law's heart." I sent the screenshot to mother-in-law and said, "Call off your dog or I'll take her to the pound." I have sent a screenshot of that to anyone who has tried to question me. If they tried to defend mother-in-law or sister-in-law, I blocked them. Word got around quickly about this, and now sister-in-law is all but cut off of the father-in-law's side of the family. Even father-in-law has come down on her hard. Sister-in-law is desperately trying to apologize and fix this. She even allowed Jake to read everything mother-in-law sent to her about my last name. I tried to read some of it, but stopped. I don't want to be angry. I'm taking time to decide how to handle this. I'm happy to be done with mother-in-law. She never really bothered me. It does take a lot to get to me, but I don't want her behavior and attitudes being normalized with my son. I wasn't prepared for motherhood to have such a strong effect. Jake did admit he gave son my last name for my dad. Years ago, my dad asked if Jake was going to propose to me. Jake said if my dad wanted to know, he would give him a heads up, but he wouldn't ask for his blessing or permission. In many more words, Dad said he never had any expectations of that. He didn't worry about gender roles, though he was glad he would gain a son again. Jake didn't feel obligated. He just wanted to do that for my dad. Sincerely, thank you all. Edit. Hey everyone, I did not expect to wake up to the aunt of messages I did. I appreciate them all. Jake takes both the compliments and the insults, as do I. I also want to clear up some questions. Yes, this is real, but I'm not going to prove that. Mother-in-law took father-in-law's name. They are divorced. They have 2 daughters and 2 sons. Brother-in-law intends to have children and will pass on the Smith name. Sister-in-law has a daughter who has sister-in-law's husband's name. Sister-in-law also took his name. The youngest sister-in-law is the one who sent this text. I'm not going to apologize for how I spoke to mother-in-law after she encouraged her daughter to use my brother like that. There is text proof that mother-in-law did this. Sister-in-law showed Jake. I have no intentions on seeking therapy or a relationship with either of them, and that's the most that can be asked of me in this upset of a state. If or when we have a second child, I always intend for them to get Jake's last name. Jake knows, and he is cool with it. Jake is willing to be called by my last name, but I doubt he'll actually change it. Neither of us are willing to do the paperwork out of spite either. Yes, I still cry remembering my dad's cry about this. I always assumed Jake did this for this reason. He really is a great man. One more time, we'll check in with some relevant comments. First up, you've got yourself a great husband. Not a lot of people could stand their ground like he did. Good luck to both of you and your little son. The OP replies, he's always been able to stand up for himself. I won't say it didn't get to him, especially what his sister did, but he just runs it out. He may also make himself a world's best husband t-shirt if he sees more compliments, but he does deserve it. And thank you. One community member chimes in, would he consider changing his name to Miller, or would that just pour more gasoline on the fire? The OP replies, yes, he would, but he tries not to let anger make his decisions. I also don't think he would because of the paperwork required, and he does everything he can to avoid it, including bribe me to do it. Another community member says, the line, call your dog off or I'll take her to the pound. So bloody good. The OP replies, I didn't mean it violently either. Just keep your yapping dog in your yard or I'll make it someone else's problem. Sister-in-law is still yapping, just more whiny now. I don't think she realized her family would draw a line in the sand. The majority of them aren't necessarily taking our side, but it's clear they're staying out of it because defending her isn't really an option. It's clear mother-in-law and sister-in-law are in desperate need of a reality check. Their idea about family seems to be more about surnames and self-serving apologies than actual relationships. If they can't kindle the fact that names don't define family, maybe it's time to cut them loose. Keep you going, and let the mother-in-law circus entertain itself while you focus on the real joys of life. Do you have a similar story? Share it with us in the comments below. And thank you for joining us today in the rLounge. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. See you soon.